The last sound I remember hearing clearly was the hum of the MRI machine, a low, industrial thrum that vibrated deep in my molars. It was the sound of modern medicine, of hope. The irony is not lost on me. They said it was a rare virus, a swift and brutal attack on the cochlear nerves. Not a loud bang, not a traumatic injury, but a silent biological thief. The hearing in my right ear vanished overnight. The left followed within a week, fading like a radio station losing signal, until there was nothing but a perpetual high-pitched ring in a vast sea of nothing. The first year was a funeral for a sense. I mourned the loss of music, the warm crackle of a vinyl record, the specific way my wife, Eleanor, hummed off-key in the kitchen. I grieved the mundane, the chirp of sparrows at dawn, the percussive rhythm of rain against the window pane, the satisfying sigh of the kettle coming to a boil. Eleanor learned sign language with a ferocious dedication that left me in awe. Her hands, once familiar in their gentle gestures, became elegant birds, fluttering and dancing, spelling out her love, her worries, the day's trivial news. Our conversations became slow, deliberate, and intimate, but we were an island of two. The children, Ben and Chloe, were different. Ben, my son, then 24 and fiercely pragmatic, would enunciate slowly, his mouth forming exaggerated shapes I was supposed to decipher. He'd get frustrated when I couldn't, his face clouding with an impatience he thought I couldn't see. He stopped trying to tell me jokes. Chloe, 2 years younger and softer around the edges, would resort to writing things down on a notepad she kept in her purse. "Dad, we're out of milk. Dad, I got a promotion." The big and the small, given the same flat textual weight. I learned to be a spectator. Family gatherings transformed into a series of moving pictures. I watched from my armchair as their conversations flowed, a river from which I was damned. I saw the laughter that shook their shoulders, the arguments that tightened their jaws, the secret glances they exchanged. I became an expert in the language of the body, but it was a language of inference and guesswork. I was on the outside, looking in. The old man in the corner, quaint, present, but not truly participating. The phrase, "old man," started as a joke. Ben would clap me on the shoulder, his mouth forming the words I'd learned to recognize. "How's the old man today?" It was affectionate at first, but over the 5 years of my silence, the affection slowly evaporated from the term, leaving behind the hollow shell of it. It was no longer a term of endearment, but a descriptor, a classification. The old man, a problem to be solved, a variable in the equation of their lives. Eleanor was my tether. Her hands were my voice, her eyes my connection to the world. When she passed away 18 months into my silence, the world didn't just get quieter, it went utterly, completely mute. The one person who still spoke to me, truly spoke to the man inside the silent prison, was gone. Her death was the final brick in the wall around me. Ben and Chloe handled the arrangements. I floated through the funeral, a ghost in a black suit, seeing the tears on their faces, but trapped in a terrible, soundless vacuum of grief. I couldn't even hear my own sobs. After Eleanor, the children's visits became routine, duty-bound. Sundays, 2 p.m. Ben would come over, check the fridge, handle any small repairs, pay my bills online. Chloe would tidy up, water Eleanor's plants, cook a meal I could reheat. They'd coordinate in front of me, their mouths moving, their heads nodding. I saw the word "dad" on their lips often, but it was always in the context of a task. "Did you check on Dad? What are we doing about Dad's insurance?" I was no longer their father. I was a responsibility. The old man.
Subscribe to Rise of the Heart for more incredible true stories of karma and justice, and motivate us.
The email from the audiologist felt like a cruel taunt. New research, cochlear implant candidates, previously deemed ineligible, advanced surgical technique. I almost deleted it. Hope was a pain I could no longer afford. But a stubborn, tiny part of me, the part that still remembered the sound of Eleanor's laugh, clicked reply. Dr. Evans was a young woman with kind eyes and a calm, deliberate way of signing. She explained that the technology had leapt forward. Where my specific nerve damage was once a dead end, new mapping software and a more precise electrode array offered a chance, a small chance. "It won't be like natural hearing, Arthur," she signed, her fingers flowing gracefully. "It will be digital, robotic even. Your brain will have to learn to interpret these new signals. It will be challenging. It might be overwhelming, but it is a chance to re-engage with the world of sound." I looked at my hands, old and veined, then back at her. What did I have to lose? My world was already a library of silent movies. A little robotic sound seemed better than none. I told Ben and Chloe about the procedure. Their reactions, observed from my silent world, were a masterclass in mixed emotions. Ben's face showed immediate concern, not for the surgery's risk, but for its cost, its logistics, the potential for disappointment. I saw the words, "at his age," form on his lips. Chloe's eyes lit up for a fleeting second with something that looked like genuine hope, before it was quickly banked by a glance at her brother. She hugged me, her mouth near my ear, speaking words that I felt as vibration but could not hear. They agreed, with a palpable reluctance that hung in the air like fog. It was my money, from the sale of the family house after Eleanor died. What could they say? The surgery was painless. The recovery was a waiting game. The day of the activation, a month later, my heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. Ben drove me, silent and efficient. Chloe waited in the lobby, nervously scrolling through her phone. Dr. Evans fitted the external processor behind my ear. The world was still silent. She connected it to her computer. "Ready, Arthur?" she signed. I nodded, gripping the arms of the chair. A click, a series of beeps, strange and metallic like a computer booting up. Then chaos. A cacophony of noise exploded in my head. The squeak of her chair as she shifted, the rustle of her lab coat, the distant blare of a car horn from the street below, the hum of the fluorescent lights, that same hum from the MRI machine years ago. It was a tidal wave of sound, meaningless, jarring, and terrifyingly loud. I flinched, my hands flying to my ears, but the sound was inside my skull. I saw Dr. Evans' mouth move. Her voice was a distorted, high-pitched squeak like a sped-up recording. "That too much? I'm going to adjust the levels." She typed on her keyboard. The world faded, then came back, softer. The squeaks became shuffles. The metallic beeps smoothed into tones. The hum settled into a background presence. "Arthur?" her voice said. It was still artificial, digital, like a robot trying to mimic human speech. But I understood it. I understood it! Tears welled in my eyes. I hadn't heard my name spoken in over 6 years. My own voice sounded alien, a gruff, booming monster I didn't recognize. I recoiled at the volume of it. "I can hear you?" It was a miracle, a confusing, overwhelming, robotic miracle. The car ride home was an auditory assault. The turn signal clicked with the intensity of a hammer on an anvil. The engine's purr was a low growl. Ben's driving seemed suddenly aggressive, the tires screeching on every turn. He didn't speak. The silence between us was no longer my condition, it was his choice. He dropped me off at my apartment. "You good, Dad?" he said, his voice flat, already mentally moving on to his next task. "Yes," I said, my voice still a strange instrument. "Thank you, Ben." He gave a short nod and drove off. I stood in the center of my living room. The silence was different now. It was an absence waiting to be filled. I could hear the refrigerator cycling on, a low grumble. I could hear the faint buzz of electricity in the walls. I could hear my own breathing. And I could hear the high-pitched ring, my constant companion for years, still there, a ghost in the machine of my new hearing. A plan began to form in my mind, tentative at first, then with a fierce certainty. They had gotten so used to me being gone. Ben's impatience, Chloe's hesitant pity, they were behaviors learned over years of my absence. What would they be like if they thought nothing had changed? What was the true, unfiltered sound of my children's lives? I needed to know. I needed to hear the world as it was when it thought the old man wasn't listening. I would keep my miracle a secret. The first test was Chloe's visit the next day. I left the processor on but hid it under a loose beanie. She let herself in with her key. "Dad, it's me," she called out. Her voice was higher than I'd imagined, laced with a sweet melodic quality that the digital processor couldn't diminish. I walked out from the bedroom, feigning surprise. She held up a grocery bag. "I made you that lasagna you like." Her words were clear, slightly too loud, the way people speak to the very old or the very foreign. "Thank you, sweetheart," I signed, my hands falling into the familiar, comfortable pattern. She talked as she put the lasagna in the freezer, her voice carrying from the kitchen. She talked about her work, a friend's wedding, a movie she'd seen. It was a monologue, not a conversation. She didn't pause for a response she knew wouldn't come. I watched her, my heart aching with a strange blend of love and sorrow. This was how it had been. This was her duty. "Ben's coming over tomorrow to look at your leaky faucet." She wrote it down on the notepad on the counter, as she always did. "Ben tomorrow, faucet." I nodded. She kissed my cheek before she left. "Love you, Dad." The door clicked shut. I stood there in the sudden quiet, the words, "Love you, Dad," echoing in my digital ear. They felt genuine, but were they? Or were they just part of the script? Ben arrived the next evening, right on time. He carried a small toolkit and an air of purpose. I let him in. "Hey, Dad," he said, his voice a baritone, efficient and devoid of warmth. He didn't wait for a response, heading straight for the kitchen sink. I followed, sitting at the small kitchen table, my beanie pulled low. I pretended to read a newspaper, my entire being focused on the act of listening. He grunted as he worked, the tools clinking against the pipes. The sounds were loud, aggressive. After a few minutes, the dripping stopped. "Fixed it," he announced, more to himself than to me. He started putting his tools away. I heard the crinkle of a plastic bag. He was taking the leftover trash from the repair. Then his phone buzzed, a loud, jarring ringtone. He answered it on speaker, setting it on the counter while he washed his hands. "Hey, Chloe, I'm at Dad's." My breath hitched. Chloe's voice came through, tinny but clear. "How is he?" "Same as always. Fixed the sink. Place is a bit stuffy. He needs a better air filter." A pause. The water ran. "Did you talk to him about, Chloe asked, her voice dropping slightly. I sighed, a sound of profound weariness. "No, not yet. I mean, what's the point? He'll just get confused. We'll have to get power of attorney first. Dr. Evans said the implant might not even work. It's a long shot. We should just proceed like we planned." My blood ran cold. "Proceed." "I know," Chloe said, her voice hesitant. "It's just, I feel guilty sometimes." "Don't," Ben said, his voice firm, final. He's not the same, Chloe. He hasn't been for years. It's not Dad in there anymore. It's just the old man. We have to be realistic. We have our own lives to think about." The words were a physical blow. It's not Dad in there anymore. "I know," Chloe repeated, her voice small. "It's just the timing. With the baby coming and Mark's job being so unstable, the money from the sale of the house can't just sit in his account forever. We need to secure it for his care." His care. The phrase was a lie. I could hear it in her tone. It was for their care, for their stability. "We will," Ben said, his voice softening slightly, taking on a conspiratorial tone. "Look, the home in Oakshire is the best value. It's clean, it's safe, it's not the Ritz, but he won't know the difference. We'll move him in next month. We'll sell this apartment, liquidate his assets into the trust we control. It's the only way to handle the old man properly. It's for the best." Handle the old man. The phrase hung in the air, toxic and vile. It wasn't about care. It was about disposal. It was about tidying up, liquidating assets, getting the best value. I was a poorly performing stock in their portfolio, and they were cutting their losses. "Okay," Chloe whispered. "It's just hard. It's business, sis. It's not personal. I'll see you Sunday." He hung up. The water shut off. He dried his hands, picked up his phone and toolbox. "All right, Dad. I'll see you Sunday." He left without looking back. I sat at the table for a long time. The robotic hum of my new hearing seemed to sync with the cold fury building inside me. The high-pitched ring in my ears became a scream. They had written me off. They had seen my vulnerability, my grief, my silence, and they had not seen a human being to be loved. They had seen an obstacle, a problem, the old man to be handled. The injustice of it was a fire in my veins. I had loved them. I had changed their diapers, read them stories, taught Ben to ride a bike, held Chloe after her first heartbreak. I had worked for decades to provide for them, to build a legacy, a home. And now that home was sold, and the money was all they saw. My love had been reduced to a line item in their budget. Eleanor's memory rose before me. Her fierce, protective love. What would she think of this? She would be devastated. She would have fought for me. And so would I. The silent, spectating father was gone. In his place was a man who could hear. And what he had heard had broken his heart and forged his resolve. They thought they were handling the old man. They had no idea the old man was finally listening.